video is part one of my series about the fascinating and exciting metalsmithing technique of fold forming. Fold forming? What is that? In some ways it's very difficult to explain because it is such a surprisingly fast-moving and sometimes unexpected way of forming three-dimensional forms in metal. In other ways, fold forming follows the laws of nature and physics. You can learn to tap into these laws and learn to discover mind-blowing new shapes, forms, and techniques that you've never thought of before. Wow, that sounds kind of deep, but it's true. Fold forming is a departure from traditional metalsmithing that makes us, as jewelers and metalsmiths, want to integrate and combine our traditional techniques with a different approach to our design work. In my fold forming series of videos, you will learn many basic and complex folds of fold forming, unfolding methods, what tools we need, how to prepare the metals, and learn hammering and rolling techniques. In this video, part one, you will learn how to make three different line folds. These folds are the foundation of fold forming. You must understand these steps to move on to more complex designs and techniques. I'm going to take it for granted that you have a basic understanding of annealing and some metalsmithing tools. I'll be using 0.4 millimeter gauge copper for all the demonstrations. Pick up a coil from your local building supplier. It's cheap, so you can experiment without breaking the bank. I'm Greenwood. Let's get started and fold some metal. When fold forming, I like to modify my vise by removing the textured jaws and replacing them with angle iron. As you can see, the angle iron is way over the edges of the vise, and this lets me put larger pieces of metal into the vise without hitting the vise. And as you can see, there's plenty of room underneath for extra metal. And then also this edge right here of the teeth of the vise is very small, which gives me an opportunity to work on multi-folds without smashing the previous fold. This will come in very handy, and you'll see that later on in the fold forming series. Don't be afraid to modify your vise to make your life easier and make your work more efficient. Quick tip. After annealing, do not quench the metal in water or pickle. The liquid will get caught between the folds, and when you start forging, the liquid will spray out all over you and the studio. Air or heat sink cool between a solder block and steel block. You will be happy you did. The first fold that we'll do in fold forming is the single fold. It's very easy. After we anneal our piece, all we have to do is fold the metal over onto itself. We have this shape. Put it down on your vise or bench block. In this case, I'm using the jaws of the vise. And tap it down with your rawhide mallet. Flip it over. Do the same thing on the other side. And now I haven't flattened this completely. There's this shape here where it's slightly open. And this is where we can start modifying our folds. And this is where the fold forming process can be very, very exciting and a lot of fun. We can leave this fold right here and open it back on up, and it will be a real soft fold here. Or we can take our planishing hammer and hammer on this fold and make it very, very tight. So let's try that and see what that looks like. I'm only going to go halfway here. Flip it over. I'll do half. And then you can see that this is much, much tighter. This will give a whole different look than the one that we didn't close all the way. Let's anneal these and we'll open it up and take a look. Now that the metal has been annealed, it's very easy to open up with your fingers. If you didn't anneal this, it would be almost impossible to open this up all the way because we've work hardened it with the planishing hammer. Make sure that you anneal your pieces in between each step of the fold forming process. You can see that this is a nice soft fold against the nice sharp planishing fold. Nice round edges here and a real sharp edge here. The single line fold is the basic fold for all fold forming processes. The next line fold is the double line fold. We do it the same way as we did with the single fold. Fold it over on itself, and now we slide it into the vise. Clamp it down nice and tight, and we have it even all the way along the entire length of the metal. Take your rawhide mallet and start hammering straight down on the top. Now you can see that I've left the ends open just a little bit, and it is flat on the top. What we need to do is we're going to make a groove down the middle of the metal, and we use a forging hammer. Any type of hammer that has a good cross peen on it works very well. I'm not going to hit it as I would with a hammer. I'm going to use it like a punch. So I'll use my rawhide mallet and tap this down and start making the groove down the middle of the fold. Now I have a nice smooth line or a valley down between the two, and I've made two folds, one here and one here. Look familiar? It's similar to the single fold, only now we have two running parallel with each other. And this is the shape that you want here, this little T shape. These are a little bit far apart, so I'd like to take and hammer those a little bit closer together. I'll take my rawhide mallet and tap them flatter. Now you can see that these two folds are right next to each other, and we can leave it that way, or we can go ahead and planish these nice and tight, just like we did on the single fold. You can see that there's, again, a dramatic difference between the real pinched folds and the little bit more open folds. Now let's open the folds. Flatten them down. And you can see that these are really dramatic, nice parallel lines. And with a little bit of texture on the edges, you can go ahead and texture on the top now too by laying it down, hammering with your riveting hammer or any other type of hammer. You can take and open these folds a little bit more, taking and making sure that it's annealed well. Open it up with your hands, or if that's a little bit too tight, you can take a knife or any other tool to fit in between there and start opening those folds with that tool, and that will start making a nice dramatic change from the parallel lines and start opening it up more. That's our double fold. Let's take a look at the next fold. The triple fold is a really exciting fold that has three parallel lines running across the metal. We use the same technique as we did with both the single and the double. Fold it over with that shape, put it in the vise, Clamp it down nice and tight, even all the way along. And then what we need to do is we're going to be flattening the sides of the metal of this fold at a 45-degree angle. We want to end up with a triangular shape of this fold. We can do that by using our planishing hammer, hammering on the edge at a 45-degree angle on both sides. We really need to keep the fold in the middle. So when you're hammering on it, it will have a tendency to fold over. So you're going to be going back and forth on this and making two flat edges going down the full length of the fold. Take your time here to do this properly. Make it nice and even, and definitely keep this triangular shape in the middle of your fold. You can see the triangular shape, and now we want to do the exact same thing as we did with the double fold. I'm going to take the cross peen and make that little valley down this side and this side. Now you can see the three folds running parallel with each other, and we've got a little cross shape here in this. So this really shows the three lines that are running parallel with each other. At this point, we can go ahead and texture any of these. We can fold them together like we did with the double by hammering it tight together, or we can just leave them a little bit further apart. I'd like to take and squish them a little bit closer together and make them tight so you're not seeing right down into that little groove. I'm going to take my planishing hammer and tighten up this one end just for fun so we can see what it looks like. Now we got three real tight ones and then three real loose ones here at the end. Now let's open this up and we'll see what it looks like. Real bold look here with the three parallel folds pinched tight at this end and then opened up here. You can go ahead and use your knife or any tool, open this up even more dramatically. Line folds don't always have to be parallel to each other. They can be perpendicular also. Let's put a single line fold across the main fold, planish it down so it's nice and sharp. This starts to add interest to your pieces. Notice the first fold is the predominant fold. Let's take a double line fold and put another double line fold across it. Fold it on over, and then we're going to slide it in the vise and do exactly what we did with the double line fold. We'll flatten it down, and then we'll take our cross peen hammer and make the little valley between there and make the two folds. We'll flip it over and we'll do the same thing on this side too. Use our cross peen, and then we can use our planishing hammer, flatten it down, makes a real nice pinched look. Open that up after it's been annealed, and as you can see, it's really quite a nice contrast between the two. Notice the first fold still is that predominant fold. Let's do a couple different folds across the double line fold. In this case, we'll do the double line fold, but we won't pinch it shut. Then on the other side, we'll just take and we'll planish it down flat and nice and smooth. Now when we open it up, it really looks dramatically different from our last line folds. Notice the sharp edge on the bottom and the rounded on the top. Line folds can go in any different directions on your piece. Let's take and we'll start crisscrossing a couple line folds. Make them nice and sharp with the planishing hammer. But let's try something different. Instead of folding them all in one direction, let's fold it back on itself, which will give us kind of a positive negative look. Fold it in and planish it flat. And then, of course, we make sure that we anneal it. And we can open it up and you can see that there's a really interesting negative and positive look. By using the basic single, double, and triple line folds, we can make an infinite variety of combination of folds for extremely exciting projects. But we've only touched the surface of fold forming. In my next videos, we're going to be taking these basic folds and expanding upon them, making more three-dimensional forms. Practice these three folds until you feel comfortable. Then you will be ready for my next videos in my fold forming series. We will take these folds and expand upon them to make even more exciting three-dimensional forms. Make sure that you subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss any of the new videos. I'm Greg Greenwood. Thanks for watching. See you next time.